That up front. I feel like it's very nonpartisan. Good evening and welcome to the candidate forum for the 2024 San Francisco Board of Supervisors District 11 election. I'm Danielle Deibler, the Vice President of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of San Francisco. The League is a nonpartisan political nonprofit. We encourage informed and active participation in the government. The League never supports or opposes candidates or parties, but we do, after careful study, sometimes take positions on issues, especially social issues. We're committed to providing the resources that voters need to exercise the number one fundamental right we have in our democracy, which is voting. Please visit lwvsf.org/vote in the coming weeks, and you'll find the voter resources that we have to offer you. We want to thank the Italian American Social Club for the use of the facility, and we also want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, the original inhabitants of San Francisco. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland, and we affirm their sovereign rights as the first peoples of these lands. This election will feature several local contests that use the favorite kind of voting everybody has, ranked choice voting. This contest is one of those ranked choice contests. We have partnered with the Department of Elections to do a little PSA at the beginning of each one of these forums just to remind people about ranked choice voting, but also talk to them a little bit about it. So on your ballot, a ranked choice contest is going to appear with the candidates' names on the left-hand side, and on the upper, there's going to be like a row on the top that's going to have numbers on it, and that's where the rankings are. So think of it kind of like one of those, like a spreadsheet that the top doesn't move, right? That row is frozen. And then you put in your choices for all of the different candidates. You then rank your first choice, right? Fill in an oval for your first choice, rinse, repeat for your second and third. You can rank as many candidates as you would like. You can also put them into categories, people that you like and would tolerate versus people that you really don't want elected. You do not have to fill in every bubble, but you do want to fill in probably more than one bubble, right, to exercise the maximum amount of choice from a voting perspective. There is only one rank per candidate. You can't rank the same candidate more than once. You can't rank the same candidate with two rankings. Both of those things will make it so that only your first ranking will be picked up and all other rankings will actually be dropped. You can also write in candidates. So if you want to add Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer to the ballot, you can, but make sure that you rank Rudolph, because otherwise that choice will not be counted. Okay, so now I'm pleased to introduce our moderator. We're going to get to the meat of this presentation.
One more question.
Oh, yep.
That ranked voting.
Yep.
Now let's say that you count the number of votes. When you vote for number one, let's say one gets 10 votes, one gets 8 and 6 and 5. The lowest one gets eliminated and thrown out, from what I understand. And those 3 people go to the second column for the 2, and then they start counting again. So actually, you're really counting votes. Is that correct?
So the question is really what happens when, so the only time that so a winner is declared if somebody gets 50% or more of the vote. So if somebody gets 51% of the vote.
You're counting numbers then. That's what
You are counting the number of votes, and if your second choice, like if nobody gets 50%, whatever's.
According to what I read, the first column, the lowest person gets thrown out.
The lowest person gets thrown out if the first, yes, the lowest person gets thrown out. And we have a brochure that you can pick up on your way out about ranked choice voting.
Person can get a lot of votes for number 2.
That is a potential upset, yes, that can happen.
If somebody told me knocking on my door running for one of the mayor said that it was more important to vote for number 2 than number 1. That confused me.
That would be confusing. There is a brochure that we have from the Department of Elections that explains it maybe better than I did, that you can pick up on your way out.
Well, they should give that to all the voters if we're going to use this system. That's ridiculous.
You can, like I said, you can pick it up on your way out. We are distributing it for the Department of Elections. Yeah, we have it here. Yep. All right, so I'm going to introduce Connie, and then we're going to get into what you all are here for, which is to hear from the candidates and not from me. So Connie chairs our pros and cons guide. She also serves on our board of directors for the League of Women Voters of San Francisco. She's a civil engineer focused on water and energy, and she brings that expertise to the League's infrastructure and climate resiliency efforts. A UC Berkeley grad, Connie moved to the Bay Area and back to the Bay Area in 2018 after some time in Southern California. She likes to bike to work, outdoor activities, and she dotes on her tabby cat Malone. And take it away, Connie.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. All right, thank you everybody for coming here. I'm thrilled that there are so many people here to hear from the candidates of the 2024 District 11 Board of Supervisors election. Candidates, welcome, and thank you for participating. If your friends, family, and neighbors couldn't be here tonight, this forum is being recorded. As you see, the cameras in the back. It will be on our website at lwvsf.org and our YouTube channel. It will also be on SFGovTV's YouTube and cable channels. We would like to give a big thanks to SFGovTV. They do a wonderful job recording and live streaming these nonpartisan forums all over San Francisco. We team up with them every election season, and it's great to work with an organization that shares our goal of educating and empowering voters citywide. Their support is truly invaluable. All right, so I want to first, before we start with the questions, lay down some ground rules. For those of you in the audience, and those of you, actually, first, those of you watching online, you are in listen-only mode. That means the Q&A and the chat functions are turned off, and the chat on the YouTube stream is also turned off. And for those of you in the room with us, please be respectful and refrain from making noise. No booing, and please hold your applause until the very end. And this helps to ensure that everybody in the room, as well as everyone that's watching online and listening to the recording, can hear fully what the candidates are saying. And that ensures everybody can hear that vision for the future of San Francisco and for District 11. It also makes the videos, closed captions, and audio clear for those viewing remotely or watching the recording. So, candidates, you will make opening and closing statements. You'll get 60 seconds. Opening statements will be in alphabetical order by first name, and I've set the candidates but one in alphabetical order by first name. And the closing statements will be in reverse order by first name. And each of you will have the opportunity to answer the same questions. And I'll rotate the order that answers each of the questions.
The first one is in an alphabetical order.
Yes, that was to accommodate. Each of you will be given the opportunity to answer the same questions, and I'll rotate the order. You'll have 60 seconds for each response. And we have a timer that's in the center. You see the little paddle that she's got. So she will tell you when your time is up. The questions that will be asked were selected from those submitted in advance by the residents and organizations of the district. So you've seen that. I just wanted to get a confirmation that you all can see the paddles with the colored paddles. Yep. See them? All right, great. Your responses to the questions should be about the issues or policy, and please be respectful. Do not make personal attacks on other people. Don't direct your responses to the other candidates. You don't need to mention other candidates' names. They can speak for themselves when it's their turn. This is a forum and not a debate. If you have a rebuttal, you don't get extra time. Instead, please fit the rebuttal into your time responding to another question or into your closing statement. So, voters, you have important decisions to make for the November 5th election. Tonight's forum is a great opportunity to learn about the candidates before you vote. So let's begin. So, starting with opening statements, we'll go in alphabetical order by first name. So in your opening statement, please introduce yourself, share why you're running for District 11 Supervisor, and please stay within the 60-second time limit. So, Adla? Up to you if you want to stand.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adla Chisti, and I am running for District 11 Supervisor. And I'm running because we need a transparent and an accountable supervisor. And we want to have a supervisor that's going to stay a supervisor and not use our district as a stepping stone for their career. We also want to make sure and let everybody else in San Francisco know that District 11 is part of San Francisco and that we deserve our fair share of the resources. And a little bit about myself. I am a single mom. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I caregive for my parents. I'm an in-home support services provider. And we also live in the same home my parents purchased back in the 70s. And this is an important piece of demographic because it's very representative of a lot of the folks that live in District 11. We live in a multi-generational home, and that's really important to have that kind of representation on the Board of Supervisors. I think that really is important for representation. And a little bit about myself. I have about 6 years of political experience. I have 10 years experience in education, and that's about it. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here tonight. For you being here tonight, it shows a lot about you care about community, you care about San Francisco. Like you, I care about San Francisco, I care about District 11. So this is why I'm running for the Board of Supervisors in District 11. So my name is Cheyenne Chan. I live in District 11 for the last 24 years, ever since I immigrated to this country. And I'm a mother with 2 children, and I'm also a caregiver for my elderly parents. And for the over 20 years, I have been a community and labor advocates and organizers. And I have done a lot to empower workers, and I have also done a lot to make sure that we have language access, whether it's community services or at school. And I also have done a lot to build coalitions, and I also done a lot to improve services for families. So I plan to bring the same passion to the Board of Supervisors and continue to be a champion for our community. And at very last, I want to thank the League of Women Voters of San Francisco for holding the forum tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ernest E.J. Jones. I am born and raised here in District 11's Lakeview, OMI. My mother was a San Francisco Unified School District teacher. My father was a Muni bus driver. And I am running for this office today because I want the best for the community that has given me everything. I started my career working at SFUSD. I've worked with our seniors in our neighborhood senior centers. I've worked on affordable housing projects throughout San Francisco. I've actually worked in City Hall on policy and legislation. So I have the full breadth of the experience, and I'm ready on day one to make sure that we secure all of the resources, to secure all of the investments that we truly need for this community. And as a true native of this community, I truly understand what it's like for this community to be forgotten. And I understand what it's like to know that outsiders are pushing to change and pushing to change our neighborhoods without our input. So thank you today.
Hi, my name is Jose Morales, and I'm running to be your supervisor because I believe this neighborhood deserves accurate representation inside of City Hall. I'm an ordinary Joe, just like each and every one of you, and I'm one of the few candidates in this election cycle that still has to work 40 hours each and every week, yet I'm up here trying to create positive change in our community. This neighborhood is made up of hard-working middle-class families, the most neglected demographic in this city. Over the past 29 years, I have been a student in this community, a small business owner, a student. I am the product of immigrant parents, but most importantly, I have been your neighbor. I am running to bring accurate representation to City Hall because our voice matters too.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? I'm Michael. I actually live right next door. First generation immigrant. My parents and I came here with $100, went to public schools, financial aid in college, and I've spent the last decade not in politics, but building new models to expand opportunity in education, in higher ed, and in early childhood education. I love this city. I want to raise my future kids here in District 11, but there's so much that's not working. We need change and competent new leadership at a time when the city is facing a $790 million budget deficit to get more speed bumps, to get more pedestrian safety, to get less car break-ins, to get an Ocean View library, to get homeless folks off the streets into mental health beds and into treatment. And that's why I'm running, to fight for all of those things.
My name is Roger Marenco, running for San Francisco District 11 Supervisor, because I see San Francisco and District 11 going down the drain. I do not want District 11 to turn into the Tenderloin, where criminals, crackheads, homeless, vagabonds have more rights than the average person, than the average worker, than the average student. As the former president of the Transport Workers Union Local 250A, I was able to eliminate all of our deficit, and I was able to increase our budget from a mere $9,400 to over $600,000 in less than 3 years, you guys. Now, we just heard that there is a budget deficit in the city and county of San Francisco. What I plan on doing at City Hall is opening up the books, reappropriating the funds so that we can fund the real programs that matter and eliminate the budget deficits.
Right. Thank you for your opening statements. The first question. District 11 is known for its diversity, with residents from many different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. As a supervisor, connecting with all members of your community is crucial. What ideas do you have for making yourself available and accessible to the wide range of constituents in our district? How would you ensure that all voices in our community are heard and represented? And we'll start with Cheyenne.
So having been a community organizer and labor advocates for the last 20 years, I think building community and building coalition is definitely my strength. And having able to speak 3 languages is also a strength to myself. So continue to fight for, make sure that City Hall all the services in City Hall continue to have language competency and cultural competency, which is really important. And making sure that this is actually a lot of community group in District 11. You know, we have OMI community groups, we have Mission Terrace, we have Balboa Terrace. There's just so many community groups that we can continue to work together. And my goal is also being a supervisor. We should have an office that is in the district, and I promise you that I am going to be in the local district office to continue to listen to all the residents and continue to make sure that we build community and we work, have town hall meetings, and we also have committee meetings that on a regular basis to continue have all kind of mechanism to bring people's voice together and reflect in decision making. Thank you.
So in order to make sure that every member of our community is represented, I will rely on my experience. I have over a decade of experience of working with this community. But beyond that, I will hire dedicated staff that is representative of our community. I'll have an open door policy to make sure that we are accessible. Beyond that, I will work to expand language access inside of City Hall and making sure that we have dedicated office hours within the district. As I said, I have over a decade of experience working with all members of this community, many of the community groups, many of our seniors. And one of the things that I did as the board president of the IT Bookman Community Center was to make sure that we hired staff that was able to speak the languages, that was able to recruit new membership, that was reflective of the community. And I plan to continue that work as we get to City Hall. Thank you.
So I think the most important thing we have to do is make sure that we're fully accessible to our residents. That is being able to contact your supervisor when you have issues and expanding access to language. expand language availability, so that means hiring staff that's able to speak the languages that are in the community. We have Mandarin, Chinese, Tagalog, Spanish, a whole bunch of variety of different languages. And, I can't speak them all, I'm not an expert, but we're going to bring in people that can speak those languages, people from the community, people that understand the cultures. We're going to have those people on our teams so that we're able to accurately represent the community.
Michael?
The diversity here in District 11 is probably my favorite part. I find myself speaking Chinese every day on the doors. My own team now, we have Spanish speakers, we have Chinese speakers. In terms of the 4 legislative aides that I would hire, making sure that they are representative of different parts.
Lower your voice.
Oh, is it too loud? Oh, okay. Got it. Different parts of the community. Second thing around language access as well. I've been doing some work now in terms of the Ingleside captains meetings and translating the newsletter to Spanish, to Chinese. Tagalog is another one to make sure that it reaches folks, and that's work that I would continue to do. I also think in community meetings, we need more creative ways to do community outreach. A lot of folks, working families, can't attend these meetings. So an idea would be something like a democratic assembly or a representative group that you bring decisions around MTA, DPW, et cetera, to. And lastly, festivals. Last Sunday, we just organized a big Mid-Autumn Festival in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and the Ocean Butte Library, and was at Pistahan, the Filipino festival. And so we'll want to make sure we're continuing to do festivals celebrating every single one of the cultures here in District 11.
One of the first things that we would do is establish a center here in District 11 so that it would be easier for residents to join us at whatever meeting we would be having. As the former president of the union, I was indeed able to hire staff, and when I hired staff, I absolutely took into account the many different languages in the transit system and in the transportation system. So, with that being stated, I remember last time I offered EJ a job if I were to win the position, and now that I heard that Cheyenne speaks 3 languages, I will be offering you the second position.
I'm sure I'll be in City Hall.
Adla?
I think it's really important. One of the things that District 11, community is very important for District 11, right? We have everyone here who is working class. We have firefighters, we have teachers, we have nurses, we have caregivers. And this district next to D10 is one of the last 2 districts of community. I think it's really important that we have a community space that's free to use in this district. We don't have that right now. I think it's really important that we continuously have satellite offices from City Hall that are here in the district, right, for accessibility. We have 12,000 seniors in this district, and accessibility is really important in order to access the Department of Building Inspection, in order to access the Mayor's Office of Housing, in order to access the Disability and Aging Services. I think this is really important. I think it's important to have town halls. I think it's important to have continuous candidates. We door knock during election season.
Right,
we should
thank you.
continue door knocking through
Thank
the
you.
rest of the season as well.
Right, thank you. Question 2. A factor in addressing homelessness in San Francisco is preventing people from becoming unhoused in the first place. What kind of protections, programs, or policies do you support to keep people in their homes? And we'll start with Ernest.
So this is a hot button issue all throughout San Francisco. And as someone who has worked in the affordable housing world, I know it's very hard to make sure that we keep people housed. One of the things that I'm fully supportive of is making sure that tenants and people who live in our homes have access to legal counsel so that when they're facing eviction, when they're facing displacement, they have someone that they can turn to make sure that they have legal advice to keep them safe. Also, over the last few years, one of the things that I've been supportive of is rental assistance, because some people do fall on hard times and need to be able to access things like the Catholic Charities Foundation, Seasons of Sharing, that allow them just a little bit of time to find that next job, to get that next bit of money flowing in so that they can stay housed. And we have to continue to build affordable housing to make sure that people can be properly housed here in San Francisco. And
All right, thank
yeah.
you. Right. Jose?
In regards to keeping people in their homes, it's important to support groups like Open Door Legal right here in the Closer. They first opened up in the Sunset District, and between 2013 to 2018, they actually ended up reducing homelessness by about 40% in that district, while the rest of the city increased homelessness by about 50%. And they were doing it for about $2,000 per case, so expanding those kind of resources are really important. And then I also agree with EJ about providing emergency housing vouchers for people that may be facing homelessness in the next, coming weeks or months because they just lost a job or they're facing a hardship. Those are the easiest people to save from becoming homeless through those kind of programs.
Thank you. All right. Michael?
I agree with both of those answers thus far. What I would add on top of that is I do think ultimately we need to be building housing at all income levels, especially affordable housing, but building more housing at all is going to help over time reduce rental costs. The other thing I think we should be addressing is cost of living in general. So for example, I worked on childcare and workforce housing the last 5 years. That's the second most expensive thing after rent for most families. We have $200 million of Baby Prop C funding in there that we should flow down to District 11 to make childcare cheaper for families. I've also, in terms of more creative ideas, been endorsed by Andrew Yang, who ran for president in 2020 on universal basic income. I think there's very interesting pilots there, especially for families, that we can use to provide some cash assistance because I think poverty is such a big part of falling into homelessness.
Thank you. Roger?
I agree with what everybody has stated. We do indeed need to build more low-income affordable housing with long-term leases that protect those low rates of low-income affordable housing, providing rental assistance programs, as well as having more access to the nonprofit community-based organizations. Back in 2001, when my family was being threatened with eviction, this was during the height of the dot-com boom era, I was able to have access to these groups such as Poder, people organizing to demand environmental and economic rights, St. Peter's Housing Committee, MAC, Mission Anti-Displacement Coalition, and they were all able to help me and my family organize to fight back against evictions. We were actually able to overturn evictions through the grassroots organizing that we did, and the work is highlighted in a documentary which you can find online called Boom, the Sound of Eviction.
All right. Adla?
So I think it's first and foremost important to acknowledge housing is a human right. And it's really important that we have housing at all income levels. It's really important that we continue to support legislation where we have housing for all. We have business corridor density, as well as continuing to support ADUs. District 11 is 67% homeowners. Homeownership education is also very valuable for our district in order to ensure that we keep our generational wealth in District 11 and people don't have to leave the district. Rental assistance is just as important. We want to make sure people have the resources in order to sustain the rents that they need to pay. We also need to ensure that we have jobs for people that live in District 11. We want to make sure we have educational pathways for people who live in District 11 in order to sustain a job and in order to pay their rent as well. These are all factors that follow into housing, and I think that's really important for District 11. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheyenne?
I agree with the majority what they said, making sure that I'm also proud that I got endorsement from the Tenants Union, Community Tenants Association, so continue to make sure that tenants have rental assistance. And I also want to add that this is, again, like Allah shared, 67% small property homeowner, and a lot of them are senior legacy generational wealth, and I want to make sure that our homeowner in District 11 oftentimes is they rich in asset but poor in cash. So I want to make sure that we continue to fight for making sure that our IHSS workers and our childcare workers and our essential workers continue to have pathways for professional work, so then they can continue to earn a respected wage, that they can keep themselves in the district, that they can keep themselves and their family in San Francisco. And I agree with a majority of what they say. Housing is a human right too. Housing builds community, and housing creates a safe network where we can continue to uplift our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now to question 3. Of the roughly 82,000 units that need to be built in San Francisco by 2031, how many of those units do you think will be located in District 11? How many would be affordable housing versus market rate? And how will you include families and workforce housing in your plans for affordable units? And we'll start with Jose.
So District 11 is made up of a lot of single-family homes. I don't have any plans to come out and try to take away your single-family homes to build high-rises, but we can definitely build a lot denser around our major quarters, that's for sure. Exact number, I don't have one. We can build thousands along our major quarters. It's important that we build at all income levels because there's something affordable about building affordable housing, but it is something that we need, and we have to look at other ways of building affordable housing. So right now, the way housing is built, we're kind of being strong-held by unions, and they're forcing the price to build housing to be extremely expensive. For instance, Tipping Point used off-site building methods to build units in Vallejo that were brought in pre-built, and they built them for about $200,000 less than the city does. So by employing alternative building methods, I think we'll be able to build housing a lot more affordably than the city has been doing in the past.
Thank you. Michael.
I was just doing some calculator math on how many parcels on Mission, Geneva, Ocean, Broad Randolph, San Jose. So I'm supportive of, currently speaking, there's not that much in terms of Mission and the other side, sort of the east part of District 11 that is included in the city's upzoning plan. I actually think we should include that because it would help also with foot traffic for the businesses as well and help with the transit lines. Muni has a big budget deficit. So I'm supportive of 6 to 8 stories on the transit corridors. I think Broad Randolph as well could use some revitalization. In terms of affordable, we really need to find funding. I'm personally very sad that the BAFA regional housing bond that was going to be $10 to $20 billion this November was pulled. So we have to find creative state level resources to access more funding for affordable housing. The other thing that I would add is right now interest rates are a big issue for market rate housing. And so, the Fed cut rates by 0.5%, but finding creative state level ways to create financing for market rate is important as well.
Roger?
Building and establishing more low-income, affordable housing near major corridors is absolutely paramount in the city and county of San Francisco and in District 11. I fully support building a much higher percentage of family, low-income, blue-collar worker houses, along with establishing legislation that protects these units as rental housing, as low-income, affordable housing. So I fully support that aspect of it, and in terms of how much percentage, when there was a fight of the Marvel versus the Monster on 16th and Mission, which at this moment is nothing, it's just a barren, dry land of homelessness and crime. We were fighting for 100% low-income affordable housing for us to build the Marvel in the Mission, and the opponents were fighting for the Monster in the Mission. At this moment, like I said, there's...
Thank you. Time's up. Move on to Adla.
So I think it's really important that we need a common sense housing plan that considers the reality of our economy and it considers our society. I think it's really important, I mentioned this before, that we have housing at all levels. We have opportunity sites here in the district. We have parking lots. We have single-story commercial sites. We also have the Cow Palace right now, which is an opportunity site for this district as well for housing. And you know, I will leave it at that. I think we have tons of opportunities for housing in this district, as well as the business corridor, as I mentioned.
Thank you. Cheyenne?
I definitely support building more housing because how affordability is definitely a crisis in San Francisco. You know, imagine when I bought my house, I think a family worked with 2 jobs. You can afford to buy a house in District 11. Now it's even you work 2 jobs and 3 jobs, you are still barely able to continue to live in San Francisco. So I think I want to make sure that we continue to make sure affordability it exists in San Francisco, making sure that we continue to build more low-income, moderate-income housing for District 11, making sure that we continue to support senior housing, making sure that housing that we build are actually welcoming and 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, that family can stay in the district. And also, like what Ala shared, it's like opportunity sites. And I want to make sure that we continue to make sure that we have an inclusive community community engagement process, making sure that, you know, in the community engagement process that we're building new building, we're welcoming new community, but we're also having input from the existing community, that we have an integrated plan to continue to build community. I think community is really important. Thank you.
And Ernest?
Thank you. You know, as much as I love the Cow Palace, it exists slightly outside of the borders of District 11. I do support upzoning along our commercial corridors. I think we can have 6 to 8 stories along our commercial corridors. And as one of the people who's actually worked on affordable housing projects like the Upper Yard, like the Valente Mortuary, and even the Mission Inn, I think we have to think outside of the box when we are really thinking about how we're going to develop this housing. A potential option is actually working with some of our churches here in the community. They have large parking lots, they have large footprints, and they could use the income generation that could come from the revenue that comes from housing. So working with them to develop housing. Also, something that I worked on while I was at the Bernal Heights Neighborhood Center was small sites, and using the small sites model to acquire properties and then also make sure that people have a place to stay in those. So I know I can't give you an exact number, but I know that we can get some housing.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And moving on to question 4. What is your viewpoint on the red transit-only lanes on Ocean Avenue between Junipero Serra Boulevard and Frida Kahlo Way eastbound, and between Genevieve Avenue and Junipero Serra Boulevard westbound? And we'll start with Michael.
So I'm personally a transit rider, and so I think we're at a time when public transit is at a huge deficit, 200, 300 million the next couple of years on Muni. There's really risk of service cuts, whether it's the 29, the 14, et cetera. So I do support our transit first policy. With that said, in District 11, there are a lot of people who drive to work and drive around. Over 54% of the community drive to work, and intergenerational families. So I think it's very important that we are also considering parking spaces and turning some streets from parallel to angled, like on Madrid Street and Excelsior, and so that we have some balance of both supporting public transit as well as making sure that all types of people can get around.
Thank you. Roger?
The red lanes are a joke. I drive them up and down the streets every single day, 10 hours a day, okay? I know what happens up and down those streets, which is double parked cars every single day, which is businesses losing business, losing money, going out of business. And this is just another political ruse for the MTA to utilize more money to be able to say, look, we did something. We're painting the streets red. Look, we're painting the rims on the buses gold. That's us working. So it is a joke.
Please be quiet. All right, thank you. All right, okay, sorry, that was Roger. Adla.
So I think, as the candidate here in District 11 running for supervisor, I think it's really important to know and acknowledge that accessibility is a big issue with red transit-only lanes. I think what Roger Marenko is saying also it impacts our business corridors as well. I think it's really important that we strike a balance with our community needs and the transportation challenges that we face. It's really important. I understand that we are headed in a direction of being car-free, but we also want to acknowledge that we are working class and we do drive. I have to drive and pick up prescriptions for my parents. I have to drop off my child to childcare. I have to take my parents to the hospital. So having a car in District 11 is important, but parking also is an issue. We have to think about outside the box. Angled parking is great. We have designated opportunity sites to go underground with parking as well. And I think those are things that we should take into consideration.
Moving on to Cheyenne.
I definitely want to acknowledge that it's even with the red zoom, it's still a lot of concern about pedestrian safety, and I want to make sure that we continue to put safety as number one when we're talking about public transit. So I also have seen a lot that it's like people are not. I knock on door. Many residents are actually saying that people are not stopping, and people are not really implementing and following the routes. So I want to make sure that we continue to do well education. Continue to make sure that if this is a plan that we're moving forward, we want to make sure that the community is well educated and well informed, and we want to make sure that we continue to invest in SFMTA to make sure that we have options. We have efficiency, reliable, and also safe public transit that really gets people to everywhere that they want. Nowadays, District 11 is still heavily working family. We rely on a lot of different modes of transit, different mode of vehicle to get our needs met every day, from like school, drop off kids to a grocery. So I continue to want to make sure that we continue to build and continue to engage community. Thank you.
Right, moving on to Ernest.
So the intention behind the red lane, and Roger touched on this, but it's to ensure that our buses arrive on time and that there is a more timely service. I sit on the equity committee for the SFMTA, and they are actually meeting right now. But one of the things that we talk about is access to our communities via SFMTA and public transit. I think that the red lanes do serve a purpose, but we have to do a better job of implementation. And another thing that Roger touched on is the double parking. So we have to do a better job of, one, providing parking spaces for people, whether it is flipping it to a parallel space, or whether it is making sure, we have to do a better job of setting up the parking spaces, but also getting community input around the red lanes and making sure that there's a clear community process that is held where people get the opportunity to voice their opinions and voice their concerns around the
Thank you.
red lanes.
All right. Jose?
So Ocean Avenue along that area is very heavily trafficked. If you ever driven down there, you see all the trucks double parked. You're zigzagging around cars all the time, around the bus, around the train. So as it stands, I wouldn't support a red transit lane along that route. Just from like what I've seen, I don't think it would make sense. I think it would make things worse. Plus, we would get rid of parking spots. There would be way more double parked cars out there. I am open, to seeing plans and getting feedback from the community. But as far as what I've personally seen, I don't support that right now.
All right, thank you very much. Please, this is the candidate forum. We want to hear from the candidates. All right, going on to question 5. The San Francisco Department of the Environment's Climate Action Plan calls for cutting net carbon emissions to zero by 2040. One of the goals of the Climate Action Plan is to make 80% of all trips low carbon by 2030. If elected, what is your plan to make local and regional transit more efficient, increase ridership, and close the overall funding gap that San Francisco is currently facing? And we'll start with Roger.
The first thing I would do is clean the buses. The second thing I would do is fix the streets. If you don't think the streets need to be fixed, get on any bus that drives up and down Mission Street, and there is only one street that
be
I
quiet.
can possibly think of in the entire city and county of San Francisco that is actually safe and not dangerous, which is literally right here in front of the Safeway. I can't think right now the exact name, but get on any bus and you will see how smooth it is. So in terms of getting ridership and that carbon footprint that you were talking about up there to that level, first and foremost, you have to clean the bus. Second, get the criminals off the bus. Third, stop allowing the drug dealers to smoke on my train every single day with your children on there as they're going to work. Start enforcing the rules, laws, and policies so that you can have a safe, clean public transportation system. And I promise you that I will clean those buses like you've never seen them before and fix those streets.
Yes. Okay, the question is, the San Francisco Department of the Environment's Climate Action Plan calls for cutting net carbon emissions to zero by 2040. One of the goals of the Climate Action Plan is to make 80% of all trips low carbon by 2030. If elected, what is your plan to make local and regional transit more efficient, increase ridership, and close the overall funding gap that San Francisco is currently facing? And before we go to the next candidate, I want to remind the audience to please be quiet so that we can. That's all right, but we just want to hear from the candidates. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, but we're here to hear the candidates, and we'll start now with Adla.
I think Roger really makes a great point, and I pretty much, agree with what he's saying. The buses are not safe; they're not clean for us. Imagine riding a bus at night if you're going back and forth from work, and so these are things to consider. And I really just agree with Roger. So,
thank you, Cheyenne.
I just want to add a story to this. I knock on door. I talked to a recent immigrant who was trying to get a job in Chinatown, but he has to be there before 7 o'clock, 6:30. So there's actually live in District 11, no reliable public transit that gets him to Chinatown by 6:30, and he rejected the job or he couldn't get the job. So to me, this is like, when we talk about all this, is make sure that we continue to invest in public transit to make sure that we have the infrastructure that is supporting us, that is accessible, that's safe, reliable, that actually serves the district, the needs of our districts. And I also want to make sure that climate justice, I'm definitely 100%, because I have kids. I want our future generation to continue to share this public goods. And I would, committed to do as much as we can across generation and, invite our elders and educate our youngers, and let's do it together too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernest?
So there's a number of things that we can actually do to make sure that we reach our goals. And one of those things I think Roger hit right on the head is safety. We have to make sure that people feel safe riding our transit systems, whether it's BART, whether it's Muni. We have to make sure that each and every member of our community feels safe, not just our young folks, but our elders as well. Another thing that we could do is support funding for our transportation system. And we have an amazing issue on the ballot coming up that can fund our transportation system, so I encourage everyone to take a look at that. More electrification of our fleet is very important. And that is something that will help to reduce those emissions. And then we have youth. I have my young volunteers here with me today, and they often talk about their desire to continue to ride Muni as opposed to drive. And we also have to create electrification points for our EV vehicles in the
Thank
district.
you. Moving on to Jose.
So I think most importantly, we have to realign the SFMTA because they have way too many jobs right now, and I think their main priority should be ensuring that we have a great transit system, and that doesn't seem to be their main priority right now. And then aside from that, we should also look at alternatives like e-bike and electric scooter incentive programs, because those have been doing a huge thing for accessibility in the city. On my street, I personally see about 3 or 4 parents taking their kids to school on electric scooters every single day. That's huge for reducing carbon emissions in San Francisco. So let's not just be one-sided about every single issue that we're talking about.
All right, thank you. Michael.
I knocked on a door the other day of actually a 6-year Muni operator who had just switched from the 14 line to light rail because he said it doesn't feel safe for him. At night, oftentimes, he's had folks who are addicted to meth have cost him. And so I do think safety is number one, and cleanliness and reliability. Over the next couple of years, though, BART is facing a deficit, Muni is facing a deficit. I do support Prop L on the November ballot, which is going to help a little bit with Muni, $20 to $30 million a year. But ultimately, these need to be big state and regional bills. In 26, Senator Scott Wiener, who's endorsed me, has a big bill that I hope will pass. And then I think long run, we do actually need more density on some of our transit corridors to increase ridership. Otherwise, the system is not sustainable. And finally, I also support incentives for electric bikes as well as electric cars as well. And I think for climate goals overall, in addition to transit, we should be looking at building
All right, thank you.
electrification and
Thank
getting
you.
more people into Hetch
All right, thank you.
for power.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to question 6. We know you've been asked how you get around the city, but how do you get out of the city when you're traveling to other locations outside of San Francisco, to the South Bay or Marin? And we're going to start with Adla.
Like take BART? Is that I take BART. We have family and friends that live in Fremont. I used to actually work on Kamala Harris's Senate campaign in 2016. I used to take the mega bus. That was a lovely bus. It was a $5 bus ride, $10 bus ride. I think regional transit, to answer your question, regional transit is important. I think we need to have funding for it and continue to have state funding for regional transit, as well as tap into federal funding as well.
Yeah, so I went to UC Davis, so that's really definitely a great shuttle that connects from San Francisco to Berkeley to Emerald that I can take Amtrak. So Amtrak is an option. I live like only 2.5 blocks away from Balboa Park. I'm at Balboa Park Station, so BART is a very convenient way for where I can, if I need to commute to go out of the country even, BART is an option to take me to the airport. And I actually taken Cal train with my daughter to San Jose, to a museum. So I think all this is good public transit, and we can, and SamTrain on Mission, outer Mission, where we can get on SamTrain to get to Daly City and other part outside of San Francisco. All those are great, but again, we can do better, faster, more reliable. Otherwise, the incentive for people to really use those are low. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Ernest.
So, I'm a practical person. Depending on where I'm going and what I plan to do, I take different modes of transportation. Often if I'm going to the East Bay, I'll take BART. If I'm traveling to the South Bay, I may drive. I went to school in the North Bay for a number of years, and I would drive and commute. But that leads me to a very important point that I wanted to finish on my last topic, which is a number of my friends and family own electric vehicles. However, it's not practical here in District 11 because we don't have a charging station. So that further entices people to purchase gas vehicles because they don't have access to the charging ports unless they have a home. So that's definitely something that we need to fix here in San Francisco at a local level to make sure that we have enough charging stations to accommodate the number of users that we want to use electric vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jose.
So when I leave the city, I take my car. D11 is extremely car reliant. It's just where we're located in the city. Most of you shop and dine in Daly City, going down to Ceremony in and out in Daly City. And you guys all take your car. It's just completely unreliable, waiting for the bus sometimes or navigating SamTrans. We all work 40 plus hours a week, and on our day off when we want to go to Pet Food Express over in Daly City to buy some dog food, we don't have time to navigate public transportation, deal with homelessness. We just want to get what we have to get done, go back home, cook our dinner, and go to work the next day.
All right, thank you. Michael. Send it down to Michael, please.
This is going to sound kind of funny, but I have not left District 11 in a long time. The furthest I have traveled is University Mound to Outer Mission, Ingleside to Crocker Amazon. So you can, a little hard to see, my shoes have holes in them because we've been out knocking doors every day. So haven't really left. See, I went downtown today, took the 14R, but yeah.
All right, thank you. Roger.
I mainly drive when I need to drive. It's pretty much that simple. When I'm in the entire city and county of San Francisco, I usually do BART and the buses. I have taken Samtrans many times before, but the problem with Samtrans is that it takes quite a while. Now, if you do happen to hop on a Samtrans bus, you will see the absolute difference from a Muni bus. You will not see people smoking on Samtrans buses, or at least on the lines that I've been to. Adela mentioned something earlier. She mentioned tapping into regional funding and federal funding as well. Tying it back to the previous question, those monies are there. They're available. They're accessible to us once we apply for these and access these funding measures, regional, state, local, federal. However, we have to show some improvement. Get the criminals off the bus, stop allowing people to smoke on my bus every single day, and provide safer, cleaner buses.
Thank you.
Tying it back to the previous question.
All right, thank you. Next question, question 7. How will you help micro businesses, those businesses under 20 employees in District 11, thrive despite high costs, bureaucratic hurdles, and safety concerns? And we will start with Cheyenne.
So it is really important that District 11, the vacancy rate is still high. We want to make sure that OEWD and Office of Small Business, their program is actually inclusive of District 11 small business. So for instance, they just have an API grant that it's subsidized rent for a new business to open. So I want to make sure that District 11 is, small business and resident have the information. So making sure that their outreach continue to be in language, continue to be in culturally competent is really important. So I'm committed to continue to work with City Department to make sure that we create programs that continue to help and support small business to open more, and at the same time to continue to make sure that to support, create program to support existing ones so that we don't, business can remain on the business corridor, and continue to also streamline the process to make sure that opening as businesses is easier, and also supporting more women's own, creds own, because I think the community is growing and we can use more diverse community shops. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernest.
So one of the things that I talked about that applied specifically here to District 11 and a lot of our small businesses, I talked about it today in our Mission Local article, is that we have new developments that go up with commercial storefronts located on the bottom. But one of the things that is a problem in that is that there's no build out there. So a lot of people who would love to move into those businesses, who would love to have those spaces, they can't get in because it costs too much for them to build out. So if we were to work with these business owners prior to the buildings going up, the infrastructure could already be in there. It would happen at a lower cost because it would happen at the time of the development. And then we could entice businesses to go in. Aside from that, I have a history of working with a number of organizations that have worked with incubators, that have worked with small businesses to get them off their feet, to get them started, and get them ready for a storefront. And we've been very successful in a number of communities throughout San Francisco. And I look forward to continuing that work as I get into this office.
All right, thank you. All right, Jose.
I think something that could help on that is building small business development hubs in our district. They would provide access to information on available grants, education to business owners, marketing services, but also lowering taxes for businesses earning less than $5 million a year. And then on top of that, programs to help aging business owners sell their businesses to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to continue that legacy in our community.
Thank you. All right, next to Michael.
Last Friday, my team and I, we went and ate at Bravo Pizza, the corner of Mission, Geneva, and Jimmy and their family there, I mean, worked so hard. They used to run Ocean Pizza, and they're switching to new ownership soon because their foot traffic has been down 30% since COVID. Their costs are up. They recently got broken into. And so I think it's safety. It is on the safety side. I just did a ride-along with Ingleside Police last night. Talking to the officers, Prop 47 needs to be reformed for some of those break-ins. We need to fully staff the police department. On foot traffic, we really need to make sure that there's more activities and events. In May, worked on a restaurant tour supporting 39 small businesses. And then on the cost side, there's lots of things to reduce permits and reduce taxes and other things to make it viable for our small businesses. We've done events at Hong Kong Bakery and TS Cafe and New Royal Bakery, and both the old immigrant businesses and the new businesses in the district. I think that's
right,
part of what makes the community special.
Thank you.
We need to support.
Roger?
We need to establish low interest loans. We need to establish zero interest loans, create grant programs, establish monetary generating sources and measures to help small businesses grow. And now that we are living in this postmodern contemporary era with the internet, bring in influencers to help these small businesses get off the ground and essentially grow. A lot of times you have influencers that are so good at doing whatever it is that they're doing that they can convince you to do nothing at all. So if they can convince you to do nothing at all, maybe they can convince you to come down and help the folks out at Bravo Pizza.
Thank you. All right. And Adla.
I think, again, Roger's spot on with all of this, and I think some of the things that Jose talked about was spot on. I think, and one of the candidates had mentioned that we need incubators, but those programs exist. We have the first year free program through the mayor. We have the Vacant to Vibrancy program, which allows pop-ups, and we should bring those in as well. I think definitely to not use childcare as a for-profit business and then sell it when it was not profitable, as one of the candidates here. I think it's really important that we talk about businesses going belly up in the district and how we can continue to assist them from not going belly up. What can we do to support our businesses that exist right now? And that's all the words I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to question 8. NBC, CBS, the FBI, and the International Association of Police Chiefs all indicate that the law enforcement profession is in the midst of a generational crisis in recruiting and retention. San Francisco is not immune from this problem. Do you support fully staffing the police in the city? And regardless of your position, while we suffer a shortage, what are your plans to make the residents feel safe? And we'll start with Ernest.
So to directly answer your question, yes, I fully support the police being staffed. I think that we have to think outside of the box when we are talking about recruiting and retention. One of the things that I think is an excellent opportunity is using the under-enrolled city college as a pathway to get people trained and ready to go into the law enforcement so that they already have the educational background and the courses needed when they set foot into the academy. Additionally, I think it's important to offer incentives for those that have graduated college, for those that have gone to school, making sure that they have loan forgiveness so that they aren't stuck with the burden of educational loans, and there's some incentive to go into our police force. I know the last couple of years have been extremely tough for folks who are in law enforcement because of the perception of a lot of community, but I think if we use these programs and really have people from our communities to go into law enforcement, we can change that narrative because we'll have people that truly care about the community, people that know the community, and people that want to do good by the community.
All right, thank you. All right, Jose.
So yeah, I do support a fully staffed police department. I think one of the biggest issues we have when it comes to having a fully staffed police department is that the initial background and academy placement process takes way too long. It takes about 2 years on average, and we're losing qualified candidates because of that. I applied to be a cop at SFPD back in 2018. I did my written test. I did really good on that, and then I didn't hear back from them for over a year. By the time I heard back, I had another job that I wasn't going to quit to go be a cop at that point. I knew a lot of people in 2018 that wanted to be cops too with SFPD who had college degrees in criminal justice who didn't get accepted because they didn't have any experience. So we just, place resources where they're needed, which seems to be in the hiring department at SFPD. I mean, we could speed up hiring and have a lot more academies being pushed through. In the meantime, I do support community policing and expanding community watch programs.
Thank you. Michael.
In my ride-along last night with officers, I asked them, what is keeping you from being fully staffed? What would help make your jobs easier to keep the community safe? And some of the things I heard, Ingleside 10 years ago had 140 officers. They're at 63 right now. So they've cut a lot of shifts, and so I support fully staffing. One of the things they mentioned is it's not necessarily about pay, it's about on the job. There's so many things that take 30–40% of their time on paperwork. I sat next to an officer last night as he was doing traffic violation stuff, and it took him 8 minutes per traffic stop, and it was going to, be enough. He had 15 of those to do, right? So making sure that we streamline those types of things. I supported Proposition E in March for that. I think from a recruiting perspective, we should be really creative. The police budget is only $250,000 right now. We should be using TikTok and Instagram and all these creative new ways to recruit officers. I'm the only candidate I think up here endorsed by the Police Officers Association.
Thank you, Michael.
But also police
Thank you,
by
Michael.
itself
Michael,
is not enough
your
for
time is up.
safety.
Your time is up. Roger.
I fully support staffing the first responders throughout the entire case, whether it's SFPD, fire, sheriff, etc. What would I do to make the community feel safe? You guys, this is the reality. The criminals are making examples out of us. Every time they break our car windows, every time they defecate in front of our houses, every time they smoke on our buses and our trains, every time they shoplift from Walgreens, they're making examples out of us and a mockery out of these ridiculous rules, laws, and policies that help protect these people. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make examples out of them. I'm going to arrest their asses and I'm going to put them in jail. I'm going to put them in jail. I'm going to show you their faces so that everybody can see, look, you guys, at least this block, this neighborhood here is now going to feel safer because these repeat offenders are now behind jail. Show me the rest.
Thank you. Adla.
I think I've maybe mentioned this before, but public safety is a basic necessity for seniors, families, and children. I agree with a couple of the points that Roger made, not all of them, but I was talking to voters, and somebody actually did suggest, that we should have a wall of shame, where people who are repeat offenders, that they have a picture up. Lighting is also just as important in our district. We should have more lighting. And I think it's really important that with retention and recruitment, we have criminal justice pathways. I'm a Peace Officer Standards and Training certified dispatcher, and I think it's really important that we support first responders as well. We ensure, that we have San Francisco State, we have City College here, San Francisco, that we continue to have and provide and support the pathways for people to enter into the criminal justice system.
Thank you. Cheyenne.
Community safety or public safety, it's personal to me. My daughter and my aunt both experienced it, are a victim of crimes. So I think to me, it is really important that we continue to support all the first responders, departments, including firefighter, police officers, nurses. And I support that we, loan forgiveness. It's what Supervisor Asha Safai, and he has a bill that is on the ballot this November that I'm supporting of it. And also I think we can grow our own program. I think from high school on, a lot of kids already know that they want to become a police officer. How can we grow our own program? There's a pathway from high school to college that they can graduate and become a police officer. And also, 80% of our police call is actually nonviolent crimes. How can we continue to expand and invest in neighborhood watch program, community ambassador program, and community patrol program, and also investing in social worker and experienced nurses that can help to deter and prevent and also handle those crimes that is more effective, those cases that is more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to question 9. According to data from the San Francisco Department of Public Health, District 11 has the second highest percentage of school-age children in the city, with over 16% of its residents falling into this category. Given that the San Francisco Unified School District is considering closing some schools, which strategies or initiatives would you propose to support families, students, and staff who may be affected by these changes? Please consider a wide range of potential actions, from policy-level interventions to community-based solutions. And we will start with Jose.
So with the most school-age children than any other part in the city, it's really important that we're supporting the children, the students in our community. I think we could best do that through expanding after-school programs, making sure those aren't cut. Those are very important for the working-class families in San Francisco. Growing up, my parents weren't able to pick me up when I got out of school at 3, so we relied heavily on those after-school programs, ensuring students have the resources they need to succeed, creating more community involvement and programs in those, and providing child care for families as well.
Thank you. Michael.
I've had a chance to visit a number of the schools and recently talked to parents at SF and teachers at SF Community School, at Jose Ortega, which has a bilingual program. Those are some of the schools that may be affected at Guadalupe. First thing I want to say is just like closures are so awful for children, families, and teachers, and should be the last resort for the district while they explore other options like increasing revenue using school sites. SFUSD has the third largest landowner, and you could develop that land into teacher housing or into just housing to generate income for the district and other areas. So the first thing I would say is being an advocate to make sure that District 11 schools and families don't get the short end of the stick. And so I've had conversations with Jenny Lamb, the former president of the Board of Education, who's endorsed me, Phil Kim, who was recently appointed to the school board. With that said, a few things the Board of Supervisors can do. Really working to end child homelessness. We have a couple thousand kids with child homelessness. A lot of our students use the schools as a way to get meals as well. So making sure that funding's not cut for meals.
Thank you. Roger.
Expanding after-school programs, having more discussions with school officials to prevent school closures, advocating for more funding, which means essentially opening up the books and reappropriating funds. And in terms of the policy level, I just came up with this idea just now. How about some type of consequence for the SFUSD school board members? What does that mean? What does that look like? Remember, I just thought about it just now, so work with me, okay? Every time you think about closing one school, one of the school board members will be removed from their position. It kind of resonates with the idea of shutting down the government, right? You shut down the government, well then the politicians who are shutting down the government shall not receive a paycheck, right? Something like that. And I only mention that because of the current threat of the government shutdown that's looming on top of our heads. So the people that are making those decisions should suffer some type of a consequence. Not the children or the families or the parents of these children whose schools are being
Your time is up.
closed down.
All right. Adla.
I think I agree with some of the things that Roger is saying. I think I was in attendance at the school board meetings in the beginning of the year, and I think having supervisors present at some of these school board meetings are important. Even if they can't say anything or make a judgment on anything, I think, just having that position of power as an elected official being present. I think it's really important to know that I was an 8th grade science teacher at James Lick Middle School. I was the only candidate. I'm the only candidate who's been a public school teacher. I've also was an educator at a program called Aim High, where I provided park access to youth. I did that for about 10 years as well. So I think the school closures are near and dear to me. And we have the largest 0 to 5 age group in this district as well. We have 14 public schools in this district, and the hit is going to come hard for our district.
All right, thank you. Cheyenne.
So as a mom, my kids went to public school, so being a SFUSD student myself, and former student myself, and also being a mom. And I think I want to make sure that our school district is continue to be accountable to our students' learning and success. And many research have shown that school closure have long-term negative impact in community, especially closing school that is where they host special needs kids, which, Madeline went to an elementary, Madeline is my daughter, went to an elementary school that has special needs kids. So we want to make sure that we continue to fight for our family. School closure, again, I think it's not a solution that we should look into, but we should continue to look into other. And I'm also a PIF community member, Public Education Enrichment Fund, committee member for the last 2.5 years. And our city has done great investment in our children. That's also a student success grant that is $26 million. And the PIF fund is also projected to increase $3 million in the next 2 years. So we can do a lot more to help our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ernest.
I'm going to try not to name drop. We deserve better. We have the largest density of school-age children, and so we should not be the district that is faced with closures. Like Michael, we did have an opportunity to talk with the parents of San Francisco Community School, but I also had the opportunity to stand on the steps of City Hall, not City Hall, but 555 Franklin yesterday with parents, students, and advocates to fight the closures here in our district. And I think that that's important because as a community, we need to fight the closures that are being pushed upon us. And beyond that, when we talk about policy and things that we can actually do, I think if we must have closures, this is the opportunity for us to realign potentially more K through 8s with wraparound services. Additionally, when we talk about policy, we have a DCCC member on this body here. And last year, there was a resolution passed that said that there should be 5-year time spans when we consider school closure. So we need to revisit that.
Thank you. I think we have time for... yeah, you were the last on this one. I think we have time for one more before we go to closing statements. So question 10, how will you balance the needs of District 11 with the very real need to collaborate with other supervisors, the mayor, and other bodies in order to make meaningful progress for the city as a whole? And we'll start with Michael.
I think to get anything meaningfully done, we got to have 6 votes on the board, and the mayor as well. I've been proud to be endorsed by 4 of the current supervisors. And a lot of the problems that I actually hear in District 11 are ultimately citywide issues. The 29 bus that is skipping kids because it's overcrowded, uni budget deficit. Taraval Station having shortage of police officers, that's citywide. Or there's vacancies. There's some stuff that's very unique as well. I think there's unique things to vacancies in this district around certain intergenerational landlords that have had the buildings a long time and they're dilapidated. But I would say a lot of those things, for me, you could probably tell I'm a bit of a details person, is digging in and being like, why is it that the Ocean View Library is slated to be built in 2028? And there's 4 years of MTA and CTA improvements. And any sort of stuff that's going to build consensus around the supervisors, that's going to improve MTA in general, is also going to help District 11. So that's the first thing that I would say.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Roger.
I guess what I would do is I would ask them to let's think outside the box. Many of the rules, laws, and policies that have been implemented, that are implemented at this moment, don't seem to be working, from our public transportation system to crime to homelessness to schools, our educational system, etc. So I would try something new, something different, new approach, new ideas in terms of working outside of the box, because it seems that the things that City Hall is providing, producing, are not working. And that's sort of where I come in. I think differently than those that are sitting up there, because I'm not a City Hall insider. I see a problem and I simply bring a solution. It might not be the solution, but it is a solution. And it is a solution that might work, hence theirs are not.
Thank you. Adla.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to acknowledge. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so how will you balance the needs of District 11 with the need to collaborate with other supervisors, the mayor, and other bodies in order to make meaningful progress for the city as a whole?
Yeah, so, some of the things that Roger has mentioned, I think, are important. I think it's also important to acknowledge that while some of the candidates here have been backed by political parties, I think that with it brings a political pressure. I think in order to fight the status quo, you have to come in with an independent voice, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table. I think it's really important that we diplomatically address the issues behind closed doors, and we make sure that the supervisors all get along and that they get along with the mayor as well. I'm a big advocate for that, but I think it's really important to make sure that we have someone up there that's going to fight the status quo.
Thank you. Cheyenne.
So I also want to say that I'm also part of the parent fighting for language protections for our school kids in the current fight for schools alignment initiative. So my first policy is about creating before school program and after school program. I think serving our next generation, it's unanimous. It should be a city's interest to continue to make sure that our kids get the quality education and environment that can continue to cultivate them to become our leaders. And I also think that basic services that is really needed for serving our community, like all the nonprofit that we can name, like OMI Collaborative, FCC, Excelsior, Co-Women Advocacy, YC, and Self-Help. All these basic services is really important that we can continue to make sure that we have funding for them. And I think continue to also, promote cross-district events like the New Year event on Ocean, Sunday Street. All this is like citywide and working, collaborating with our neighborhood district is really important for collaboration. That builds a vibrant city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernest.
Wait, can I have a question again?
Yes. How will you balance the needs of District 11 with the very real need to collaborate with other supervisors, the mayor, and other bodies in order to make meaningful progress for the city as a whole? Can you silence your phones, please?
So, I think that for me, this is digging into my history and making sure that we look at my track record. I have a track record of working with people from all over San Francisco. I have a track record of working with all of the different supervisors, and I'm proud to say that I believe, and I may be wrong, someone can tell me if I'm wrong, but I have the most supervisors endorsements. I have 6. And so right there is a consensus vote, right? That's 6 votes right there. That's the consensus we need to be able to get things done in our district. And when we talk about collaboration, I think that it's truly an opportunity for us to have open dialogue. I think one of the knocks that I get the most is that I'm able to work with people, and people can understand why I might work with someone that they consider far right or someone that they consider far left. It's because everyone has a voice, and we aren't able to actually move progress until we listen to both sides and come to a compromise and come to a solution that benefits the true and whole community.
Thank you. Jose.
So more importantly, we need collaboration across the board. But that's why right now it's more important than ever that we vote out the status quo. That means the new mayor, voting out the incumbents, because you know what's the worst thing going on right now? The incumbents are trying to make you believe that they're the agent of change. Where have they been the last, 4+ years? It's like Aaron Peskin, he's out here talking about being the agent of change, wants to build housing. All of a sudden, what has he been doing the last 15 years? He's literally the guy who has created all these conditions. So, we have to open up our eyes as citizens, vote out the status quo, bring in outsiders who actually want to bring in change. Why? Because they've been living in these conditions that the city keeps perpetuating, and we're sick and tired of it. So, please take a look at, who's endorsed by who, and realize who's going to perpetuate the status quo inside of City Hall.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move, to the candidate closing statements, and we're going to go in reverse alphabetical order from first name. So we're going to start with Roger, and you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
It's not 2 minutes?
1 minute, 60 seconds, according to my.
Okay, I'm not running against anybody up here. I am running against City Hall. I'm running against the red tape in City Hall. I'm running against the bureaucracy in City Hall. And I'm running against all the BS inside City Hall, which hinders us in terms of being able to move forward. I'm not a Democrat, Republican, or any of that. I'm not red or blue, liberal or conservative. I simply see a problem, and I bring a solution with it. With that being stated, I want to state that something did happen in my family personally. So if for some reason I'm not able to make it, I do want to state that, Adela stated something earlier. She stated that she has an independent voice, and I really like that. I respect that. I admire that. So if for some reason I am not able to personally commit to this role, I will fully support her in terms of being my number one vote because of the amount of educational level that she has, the experience as a teacher, the law enforcement arena, which she worked in briefly, and the transportation, you guys. So as much as humility as she has, I just want to sort of embellish her a little bit.
Thank you. All right. Michael.
My parents are supposed to be here sometime soon. Looks like they're a little bit late, but family is number one for me, and ultimately I want to create a city and create a neighborhood where I feel proud to raise my kids. I've heard from so many people knocking on the doors that things have gotten worse, that they used to be able to leave their doors open at night, that they used to remember the El Rey Theater being open or the Granada Theater being open or all these different types of things. And then the city, they used to go downtown for Macy's and all these different things. And I think we need competent new leadership to make that happen. I'm the only candidate on this stage who has managed 8-figure budgets, who's managed teams of people, who's gone out and tried to tackle tough challenges like a new college and childcare. I'm proud to be endorsed by the San Francisco Democratic Party, Attorney General Rob Bonta, the POA, the Carpenters Union, the operating engineers, and also creative folks like the lead guitarist of Linkin Park. And I'll be out running through walls for this district and for the city. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Jose.
I'm not a politician. I'm an ordinary Joe. Grew up here in the city, up the block on Naples my entire life. Went to SFC Community School, Archbishop Reardon High School, and I just love the city so much. But the condition that it's currently in is terrible. I've been married to my wife now for 2 years, and I want to have children with her one day, but not in the state of the city right now. We need to clean up our streets, get rid of the drug addicts, and make it a great place where children are able to thrive. That's why I'm running, because the city has been doing a terrible job at meeting our needs, and I don't believe the status quo is going to be pushed out of office unless new people run and get inside of City Hall. That's why I'm running, because I want change, you all want change, so please, think about who you're going to vote for this November.
Thank you. Ernest.
As always, I want to thank all of my colleagues here because it's hard to do this. I do want to say this. When we talk about where have you been over the last 4 years, I can tell you where I've been. I've been at the OMI testing hub, making sure that this community was being served. I was working to do affordable housing. I was in City Hall making sure that our community was being served. And this isn't the status quo because we've never had someone that's represented this community, that's from this community, that really understands the people of this community. So when I tell you that I'm ready on day one because of my lived and professional experience, I'm telling you that I should be your number one choice. And I'm also telling you that I am ready to run through walls. I am ready to do the work. I am ready to rally communities and bring them together and make sure that we have every single resource that we truly need. And I can tell you this, I know how to do it. All right. So again, I would like to give a big thanks to everyone who's here. We have about 20 people making phone calls and door knocking in the office. I want to give them a big shout out while I have this opportunity, and my young folks in the back that came here with me, and they have been volunteering all week. Y'all have a great
Thank
day.
you. Cheyenne. Please keep your applause to the end.
Okay. Thank you again for all of you staying here tonight to listen to our forum. My name is Cheyenne again. I'm a community organizer and labor advocate for the last 20 years. And I'm a mom, and I'm a caregiver for my aging parents. District 11 has suffered long time disinvestment in District 11. We need safer street. We need to continue to provide services that is really needed across generation, from our children to our seniors. We need to make sure that we continue to restore and upgrade our parks and library. Those are very essential. We're also making sure that we continue to have greater investment in the district so we can have good public transportation, safer protection pathway. And we also need to make sure that we work together. I think bringing people together, building coalition, this is how we're going to get the word that our voice reflected in City Hall decision. And I'm ready to be the champion. I'm ready to be the voice to continue to amplify our needs. And please join me, and thank you for your support. Please consider to vote for me on November 5th as your number one
Right,
choice.
thank you.
Thank you.
Adla.
These are closing remarks, right? So I want to thank Roger for saying those kind words. I think it's really important that we do have an independent voice at City Hall. We have a representative at City Hall who is representative of the entire district. I think it's really also important that we have a candidate who's supporting no on Prop K, because that is something really important for our community. That is something I think we have a couple of candidates, or a candidate on the stage that is not supporting Prop K, the Great Highway. I am probably the only candidate who's been a teacher, who's been a dispatcher, who's been an environmental planner for Caltrans. I have also been a candidate who has worked in the political arena for the last 5 years. And I think we want someone who's going to be fearless and who's going to be resilient at the Board of Supervisors. So I implore you guys to vote number 1 for me when you're voting tonight, or in October and November.
All right, thank you. All right, on behalf of the League of Women Voters of San Francisco, thank you to the candidates, the voters. We also want to thank the voters and the Italian American Social Club for supporting this nonpartisan forum. To everyone here tonight, tuning in online or watching the recording, thank you so much for participating in our democracy by learning about your choices for the upcoming election. The League of Women Voters will host candidate forums for most local races, including the Community College Board, Mayor, and Sheriff. Visit our website at lwvsf.org to learn more and to RSVP for those forums. Be a voter. Please cast your vote by Election Day on November 5th. Your vote matters. Be the change you want to see right here in District 11. Together we can build the future of our community block by block. Remember to vote. Encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to vote. Thank you and good night.